Hello again and welcome to Lesson 1. We're going to learn about how to know your baby's ready for foods. Experts from nearly every profession agree that feeding baby solids before 4 months of age is generally unwise and it can increase the risk of health problems. My professional experience agrees with scientific literature that really discourages delaying feeding much beyond 6 months. There really seems to be a sweet spot for starting food between 4 and 7 months of age. What exactly has to happen for our little ones to get ready to eat? There's several important things that happen internally that we can't really see with our eyes. Things like your baby's gut maturing, for example. Another example is the integration or the disappearance of several protective reflexes, like a little thrusting of the tongue and a hypersensitive gag. Luckily for us, these hidden signs of readiness usually occur around the same time as some more visible outer signs of readiness. Let's focus on what you'll see that will tell you that your baby's ready to try some solid foods. The biggest sign is that your baby will be able to sit upright all by himself, or maybe with only a little help for balance. This core stability of the body and the neck is absolutely necessary for your baby to best coordinate all those little muscles of the mouth. Imagine I ask you to thread a needle. That's a task requiring very precise coordination of little muscles while hula hooping. There's just no way, right? It's a silly analogy, but I think maybe it'll help you see just how important that stability of the body is for the rest of our coordination. Another good sign that your baby's ready for food is that he's mouthing toys frequently without gagging. While it might leave your baby's shirt drool-soaked, all that mouthing is really important preparation for feeding. And finally, if your baby shows interest in foods, watching intently as you eat or reaching for what you're eating, for example, those are really good signs. In fact, I remember the day my 5.5-month-old son screamed at me while I was eating ice cream and lunged for my bowl. I had planned on starting solids at 6 months, but we started a few weeks early because he was clearly ready. And no, I didn't start him with ice cream that day. So here's a little heads up. Your baby's doctor might encourage you to start feeding at his 4-month appointment, often with rice cereal. That's a really common standard recommendation. In fact, our pediatrician made it for both of our babies, but it's outdated advice and it doesn't follow the current guidelines of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Most babies aren't showing the signs of readiness we've talked about until closer to 5 or 6 months, and many parents now are choosing healthier alternatives to rice cereal for babies' first foods. Follow your individual baby's lead, and then we'll talk more in the next lesson about selecting first foods for your baby. Throughout this course, I'll be mentioning some red flags that might warrant a conversation with your child's doctor and maybe a push to see a specialist. Having your child evaluated can be scary. I get it. But it might be helpful to reframe it as getting support and more information for you as a parent instead of looking for something wrong with your child. And I promise we therapists aren't scary. We're really nice people and we love babies and we love helping families and we have a lot of support to offer. So please don't be scared if you see some of these red flags and you feel like you need to talk to your doctor about them. Don't be worried about the next steps. Our first red flag is if your baby isn't showing signs of readiness by 7 to 8 months, please talk to your child's doctor. A developmental specialist like a physical or occupational therapist could help figure out if there's anything going on to make independent sitting tough for your little one. 7 to 8 months is really only a few weeks behind what we would expect for sitting, but because it's affecting other areas of development, like your baby's readiness for eating, it's really important to get it looked at. A baby who by 7 to 8 months rarely mouths his toys or his hands should also be screened for sensory processing issues. And a consistent tongue thrust or hypersensitive gag reflex should definitely be examined more closely and addressed by usually a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist. All right, I'm going to share a really fun and really important step for preparing your baby for the most positive first mealtime possible. Are you ready? I recommend you spend at least a few days doing what I call food readiness. The main purpose of this step is to make everything about mealtime familiar and routine for your baby before you add food into the mix. And since this step can be a really great time to look for the signs of readiness that we've talked about, I recommend starting it when your baby first begins to sit up in that very wobbly sitting phase. Here's how food readiness activities can help your baby. When we're in a new situation, our sensory systems tend to go into a state of high alert, or what we might call hypervigilance. And if you're wondering, what in the world is that? Trust me, you know this feeling. It's that state that you're in after you walk through a spider web. Every single thing you feel, you overreact to. You're swinging your arms and you're doing that ridiculous spider web dance. And for a few minutes afterward, the familiar sensation of your own hair on your neck suddenly skeeves you out and you're swatting at yourself. The sound of a gnat buzzing near your ear makes your skin crawl. So while it's not related to foods, I think this is an example we can all relate to, and one that really underscores the fact that the same sensations, like your hair or the gnat, they can feel just fine and unthreatening, or they can feel totally yucky and cause for alarm, and it all depends on the state your sensory systems are in. So it's really important to help your little one be relaxed and at ease when that first food appears on the scene. How do we do that? Baby meal times without food. It might seem silly, I know, but it can be a really valuable step, and your baby will most likely love it. Several times a day, ideally at family meal times, put your baby in his high chair, strap on his bib, put his baby spoon in front of him and maybe some teether toys on his tray. Let him watch you eat, let him smell the smells of foods you're eating, let him bang his spoons and toys on the tray and put them in his mouth. He's gonna drop them. That's okay. So keep some backups nearby. And as long as he's happy there, let your little guy enjoy the mealtime. If after a few minutes he gets fussy or restless, you can give him a change of scenery and just move on. The only real agenda here is to make every aspect of mealtimes feel familiar for your little one, except for the food. You can do this food readiness fun for a few days or a few weeks until you see those signs of readiness we've talked about. The main things I want you to take away from this lesson are to give your baby a chance to get familiar with mealtimes so that food is the only new variable you'll be introducing at that first meal, and start food in your baby's 4th, 5th, or 6th month when you see clear signs of readiness. All right, let's hop on over to lesson 2 and talk about first foods.